Hello, Oodles and Googles. We are back. It's been a while. It's been 3 weeks. I have been busy, lazy, distracted, doing lots of stuff. I'm not actually at home. Anyone who might have been paying attention to my background environment may notice that I am in a different place. It's quite beautiful here. I'm not going to turn the camera, but I'm actually looking out across Montreal. Beautiful view, 29th floor of my lady love's condo. She's got a little nerd central here as well, so at least I have a nice little backdrop. And I wanted to come back strong and continue our path down the road of superpowers. I'm going to explore year 3, book 3, as we could say today. I'm a little bit tired, so bear with me. And I have to say, people, I give a pretty harsh review of book 1. And book 2 blew me out of the water in terms of just general improvement. It wasn't an amazing book, it wasn't a perfect book, but it was a great book, especially in relation to book 1. It was just so fun. The character development was so much better. The story was tighter, the action improved, everything just really took off in book 2. And book 3 to me is sort of in between. There are some things that were even better than book 2. Other things that unfortunately I found fell back into kind of the patterns of book 1, and it was a bit of a drag. It was a bit too long, and time was spent in places that it shouldn't have been spent. But again, I think that is possibly more of my preference. I mean, I am used to really long series and very, very large books. I mean, I've read 15, 20 book series. Most of the books I read are 600, 800, 1,000 page books. So it's not a matter of the size being an issue, but just where the content is going and how I feel the general story plot is moving forward. Drew Hayes seems to get really, really distracted in these minutiae that don't really matter and that tend to kind of not go anywhere and then fall off and be completely redundant. Now, that could be just stylistically where he wanted to go with this. He is really, really focused on the day-to-day of these people who are learning to grow into a world of superheroes and how violent and dangerous it's supposed to be. So he's trying to showcase like what they're going to have to deal with still in a normal day-to-day. And have to relate that to a superhero life. Although this is a complaint I made for book 1 and book 2. We just don't really see enough of the outside world and what it actually is to be a superhero. So we can't really have a perspective of what they're supposed to be waiting to become. It's just kind of not shown enough. So that's one of my biggest gripes with the series is, again, what is actually happening out there in the world? What are these kids going into? I need to know what the situation is like. I can't only see their personal lives and never understand what's happening out there. If you're going to be putting them in a scenario of a training camp at school that's preparing them for this world I know nothing about almost. So that's really the biggest problem with this series. And there's only 4 books in the series. So I've finished off book 3 and I still don't really know diddly squat about what's happening on the world. But to be fair to Drew Hayes, he manages to still make it interesting, to still make it fun, even though there's this frustration of, I mean, quite frankly, even at the end of book 3, besides the obvious, there's a cat making noise. My girl's got 2 cats. They are crazy little creatures. But basically, we still don't even really get any answers at all about what is the actual main story plot. We know nothing about Globe's past. We don't know what his purpose is and the few little things we've seen him do, which has really not been much at all. So the way I'm viewing it is that either Drew is never going to really expound on these things, or book 4 is literally just going to be one reveal after another, which could be really fun. It could be that year 4 is going to be just these massive reveals constantly, and so it's going to be this phenomenal book that finally ties everything together, which is just a stylistic choice. So again, I'm withholding judgment overall on that, but it still is frustrating to go through 3 books, not know pretty much anything about the world, and not have a single plot point actually come to fruition in any shape or form. It's pretty much just been little hints and pieces of things that just led to more questions and never any real answers. But to get back into, we will say, the more positive stuff, so book 3 obviously begins with the consequences of Nick's actions at the end of book 2 coming to fruition and actually seeing what's happening now that he's been booted out. The 4 others have come back, Herschel, Vince, and Mary and Alice have come back. I don't know why I'm really tired, sorry. But the 4 of them have come back to school, and they're trying to deal with the fact that Nick's gone and just move on and deal with a lot of the other consequences of how other people interact with them, and obviously the mounting exertions of being in this school that's trying to basically beat the crap out of them to prepare them for being a hero. Now they're being forced to really choose a path to really see what the world's like out there. And I think that's probably one of this book series' strongest points, in that they really try to make it clear that you're going to be fighting violent criminals. You need to be psychologically, emotionally prepared for these kinds of things, and they don't mess around about it. I mean, seeing Herschel and Roy's development, and actually, besides figuring out that actually Herschel serves a purpose in a certain sense, and like him getting stronger actually strengthens Roy, but seeing their own personal struggles with their family and how their own father kind of fell from grace because of such basically idiocies as something as just cheating, and then not being able to hold his family together and running away from that was really interesting, and seeing that development and how it proceeds forward in book 3. Seeing Nick actually having to come to terms with his own development, this kind of split personality that they show off in book 3 as he kind of rekindles his memories that have been excised from him at the end of book 2, and seeing him kind of realize that what he had grown into over those 2 years with the others was who he truly wanted to be, and it didn't mean him becoming this kind of goody two-shoes hero, but more so this kind of in-between limbo, a kind of, he's nothing like Deadpool, but that kind of anti-hero. I'm gonna help who I want to help my friends do bad things, but not in like be evil kind of way. So that was another interesting aspect where they showcased Nick like that, and obviously they showcased that through the subtlety course, where they're trying to show that not everything can be this clean cut, I just go punch a hero and everything, everything's clean and I'm a great person. Sometimes it requires getting your hands dirty, and there's a lot of people who, because of the ideals they try to hold up to the world as superheroes, that's not manageable. They can't actually win the fights if the villains are going to do all these underhanded things and you're always doing goody two-shoes stuff. It doesn't work that way. So Nick was a really great character to see that kind of development, those two sides of the coin, and seeing how he has to deal with Nathaniel, his little arch nemesis for another one of the mafia families, and that psychoness of that guy was really interesting. And also seeing just how badass the supers are in relation to other people, just because of their training and whatnot. Like Alice just is so badass in this book. She's so much more in control. She's coming into herself. She's really starting to learn who she wants to be, the kind of person she wants to be. It's not perfect, but it's really great as a development plot point, especially because she's still sort of like a side character comparatively to Nick and Vince, who are developed a lot more. There definitely is, Vince kind of lags in this one, but again, it's kind of the same issues as before, where Vince is always kind of shown as the main character, but never actually allowed to blossom. Like, he doesn't really, he's growing, he's changing, but it's so slow, and there's so much connection between, like, why did Globe raise him? Who were his parents? Does he have his abilities? Like, what is his relation to the whole wide scheme of things? It's just held back way too much. So that's really frustrating. I mean, one of probably my biggest problemings with this whole series, even though it doesn't really matter in the long run, is the relationships. Vince's relationship with Camille is just kind of redundant. I mean, it's kind of cute, but it's pointless. Like, I don't even get why it's there. Camille, as I said in my review in book 2, just kind of comes off in a creepy kind of self-hating way, which at least she develops out of to a large degree, but it's still just kind of weird and creepy in book 2. And then their whole relationship is just strange. It's not really properly developed in any way. They're just shown together and then they're always separate. And then you talk a little bit and then nothing happens. And so it's kind of redundant. His showcasing his relationship with, I'm blanking on her name now. Well, the you could call her, I suppose, the coworker or the subordinate of Nick, who ends up being Vince's past lover, which again was also a redundant relationship because they didn't even know who the other was, really. They didn't know each other's names. And then it's brought into this book, I guess, to contrast and cause friction between him and Camille. The problem is him and Camille never develop anything properly, and the other one kind of falls away and just kind of drifts apart and serves no purpose either. So that's kind of redundant. I mean, Chad's relationship with Angela is kind of fun, but again, serves no purpose. Sorry if that's a spoiler for anyone out there. Those two dudes get together, but this seems to happen in a lot of the relationships. Mary and Herschel's relationship is just there since kind of book 1, and I don't really know what's the point of it. Again, doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't improve them as characters. It's not really shown the struggles of that. It's just there. And that happens a lot. I'm not going to mention one relationship that's kind of just thrown in there near the end of book 3 that's supposed to, I guess, add a little depth, but was just really thrown in there just so that another big event could happen at the end of the book, so that there would be trauma and tragedy. But it just felt so weak because the relationship was always obviously just put together just so that there could be someone acting sad. So that kind of pissed me off. So the relationships here, friendship-wise, are amazing. There's such great development of the friendships and seeing all these conflicts that they have, even though they don't all have this perfect, oh, we get along great kind of thing, but they're just there for each other because they've come together through all these struggles. But the relationships romantically are mostly just a waste of our time. I get that they're going to happen, obviously, because this is college and they're hooking up, but it just kind of detracts from the overall story, and again is a bunch of time that's spent on them that should have been spent on expanding the outside world and should have been spent on expanding the actual main plot point or developing the main characters more in terms of other ways, and they're not. And so it's not so much that the relationships are fully problematic so much as that too much time is spent on them and they serve no purpose. They don't actually develop the characters in any way, shape, or form, except maybe Camille a bit, but again, that development should have happened outside of the relationship through friendships, let's say. It would have been better. I really don't know what else to say in terms of the relationships. I just can't think of something extremely positive to think of in that. I mean, even Nick and Alice's relationship gets a bit of development, but it's still kind of redundant. It's just kind of thrown in there. Really, overall, if you just kind of ignore those parts and just focus on the fact that you get to see some really good development of each character. Even Chad is great. That's one thing that's fantastic in this book. They spend a little bit of time with Chad showcasing that he has to understand that there's more to life than just training and being a superhero. There's like this other aspect of life to being a full human being, and that seems to be a really great focus in this series. It's just, what does it mean to have these abilities, develop as a human being at the same time? Like, you're going to have friend problems, you're going to have family problems, you're going to have relationship problems, you're going to have all these other aspects that you need to grow and develop with, otherwise you're just going to be incomplete. And you have to be true to yourself, and you have to be honest with yourself. And through their training, I mean, even they show them where there's sneakier ways to get through training. It's not just about brute force. There's other things you can figure out and do to try to win in a scenario. There are struggles that you're going to have to go through, where you're going to have to make a choice between life and death to save your life, to save the lives of others. And sometimes there are criminals that they can't be nice to, and they're just going to have to take them out, and they have to deal with that. And it all kind of culminates in, to be fair, a pretty fantastic ending. Like, probably the best ending of the 3 books. Though granted, book 2's ending was better in the sense of just, it was such a twist for Nick. So as an individual character, it was phenomenal, the end of book 2 for Nick. But overall, in totality, for all the characters, the end of book 3 was really, really great. Getting to see them have to deal with this scenario and deal with such like a violent altercation at the end of it was really, really good. Although I do think it showcases even more Drew Hayes' weakness for action scenes. Like, he did it really well. I don't want to shit on this. It's not like it's terrible, but he has a tendency to build up these fight scenes and then not really showcase well individual characters or groups working together, working out how they're going to beat another person with their ability. It's just, he kind of lets it drop off really quickly. He did that, I think, really badly at the end of book 1 with his Vince's battle against George, where he just got this whole build-up and getting wildfire, and then we just saw him shooting fire, and that was the end of it. There was no actual point of view, me having to deal with this fight. Book 2, you saw that a little bit more, but again, it was kind of cheated through because Vince was basically in an illusion, so he didn't have to work through anything, and the others were just trying to get the hell out of his way so they didn't actually shoot them with fire or something. In book 3, at least it is done way better than the other 2 books. Vince is kind of losing his shit, and how he uses his ability in the last fight was phenomenal. But again, they kind of skipped through a lot of the fights. They kind of ended too quickly. They built up the badness of all the others around them, but then they kind of got their asses saved pretty quickly. Although there is one pretty damn good fight that involves Roy and someone else and a baddie that was pretty sweet. So overall, again, I think it's got still a really great pacing to it. The flow and the action of the series is really great. I think the training scenarios are phenomenal and really showcase the psychology and the physical aspect. I think they really developed Roy really well in this book and allowed him to be kind of the showcase of how to think about fighting as well, learning that, just punching things is not ideal, and how to showcase strength and how to be intelligent while also being a physical fighter was really, really well done. You see that in a lot of shows, movies, anime, where people just punch things, and it would have been so much better if the mentality was there like it is in this book of like developing yourself past just this simplicity of a fight scene. So that was really, really well done. So in some ways this book was better than the others, but in others it just lagged behind because it's just like, this is the end of book 3 and I still don't know the things I need to know to actually care about the larger plot point. So cross my fingers that book 4, going back in time, that year 4 is going to be finally revealing the things we need to know to understand like the actual plot. But I don't know, I am slightly flustered that I've gone through 3 large books, and almost know nothing about the main story. I've pretty much just had a bunch of kids go through university and have a few struggles happen to them, but there's no larger reasoning for anything. It's just a day-to-day, which again could be what Drew Hayes is aiming for, and if so, he's done a really bang-up job. As much as I hated on book 1, I still managed to go through it relatively quickly. It had a good flow. I finished it off even though it was so bloated. Book 2 was phenomenal. Great character development, and whatever flaws it had, it pushed through them really great. And book 3, just from an action standpoint, a tactical standpoint, a training standpoint, and especially some deeper character development of certain people, was really, really good. So I'd highly recommend continuing the series, finishing it off. I really, 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 really hope that Drew finally comes together in book 4 and finalizes some stuff, because I'm kind of fed up of not understanding what the hell is happening anywhere. It's a little bit annoying now. And yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out the website geektales.ca. And I hope you enjoyed. Peace.